Hi, I'm Sarah Rathburn with Healthy Fayette County. Here today with me is Tracy Burns with the Whitewater Valley Art Association and Sarah Grubbs, who's going to talk to us a little bit about yoga today and the effect that it has on the mind, the body, and the spirit. So Sarah, why don't you start us off with just telling us a little bit about your background and your training?
Okay, as far as my background, I was a gymnast for a long time, so that's kind of where my physical draw to yoga came from. But as I kind of came into my practice and realized there's a whole other world of yoga, not just the physical practice, but I took my very first yoga class, and I think it was 2003, so almost 20 years ago. And then that was when I lived in Indianapolis, and then I moved to California, and I began practicing more out there as well. And then I eventually worked at a yoga studio and just kind of built my practice up from there. And then came home about 10 years ago and kind of thought I would bring my knowledge of yoga back home. There wasn't really a lot of people practicing around here then. So, and then my dream was to eventually have my own studio, which we just opened last fall. So, yeah, my path to yoga, like I said, started out with the draw to the physical practice, but as I've studied and learned and through my trainings, I've had a whole new appreciation for the mindfulness and the breath work and the awareness of self that it brings. So.
Okay, and you talk about it being a practice. Want to explain that a little bit for us?
I guess that is confusing. So in yoga, there's not necessarily a goal, right? It's a practice to just continue on a journey. If you have a destination, great. As far as like, I really want to be able to do a handstand, or I really saw this cool pose that I want to be able to do. So maybe you have kind of this benchmark goal that you want to reach, but really when you when I think about it, it's kind of a lifelong journey because it's not just about the physical practice of the body. It's being able to better communicate with ourselves. And like you mentioned, the breath work of it. When we can really just stop and bring stillness to the mind and just bring quiet around us, we can better communicate with ourselves. And in yoga, I like to say we cultivate this mind-body connection through the breath. So when we really just stop and we bring our awareness into the breath and we can feel how the breath feels in the body, we notice physically what happens in the body when we're breathing. Because we kind of start there, and then you can incorporate that into the physical practice as well. So it's this practice of listening to our body. So if we're in a certain posture, we notice, how does this feel in my hips, or how does this feel in my shoulders? How does it make me feel emotionally? Because some postures, I guess, bring about a emotional reaction too, depending on how long we hold them. So it's said in the yoga world commonly that we store trauma in our hips. So if we do like long postures that involve our hips, that it can elicit emotional release as well. So anyway, the practice of yoga is, finding your starting place and then continuing to practice and just learning new things about ourselves. And learning new things about ourselves, maybe we learn how to control our emotions better. We learn how to communicate with ourselves better, which allows us to communicate with others better in our communities and our families. And it's just an ever-evolving practice, not only physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually.
And what are the physical benefits of yoga?
So physical benefits of yoga would involve, the stretching aspect. So we're stretching out our muscles and we're getting lengthening in our muscles. Sometimes we carry tension in our shoulders and we don't realize that we're walking around tense all day. So if we can bring awareness and, do certain stretches that are focused on the hips, the shoulders, the legs, the core, physically we can release the tension within the body. And that feels good. So, but also there's a lot of different types of yoga. We were talking earlier about how if you want a fast pace, kind of like a cardio, sweat it out, hot yoga would be something to consider. I don't have the capabilities of teaching that in my studio currently. Maybe that's something to work on in the future. But I also teach chair yoga, kind of for, I wouldn't say an aging population, but people who maybe have less mobility or any kind of affliction where you might not be able to stand for long periods of time. And that is also something that I offer as far as a physical practice for not just young, super healthy, super fit people. It's a physical practice for everyone. Yoga is for every body, I like to say.
And then I hear about there's a mind-body connection. Tell us a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, so we can cultivate the connection between the mind and body through the breath. So like I was saying, if we really slow everything down and bring the awareness into the breath, we can break it down a lot. It involves the vagus nerve, the parasympathetic nervous system, where we can calm it, and it kind of helps us to navigate the fight or flight response, or there's freeze as well. So when we can slow everything down and calm ourselves, we can react better or react differently to things that might upset us, might anger us, might stress us out. So it's kind of this, the space between a thought and an action or a reaction. So we can kind of calm ourselves to widen that space or widen that gap. We can better decide how we're going to react to different things. And I know people probably like, that's yoga. But it's, a product of yoga is being able to cultivate that mind and body connection and be able to, this inner awareness to decide how we want to act or how we want to react. And that doesn't just happen on the mat. That translates into our regular lives as well, helping to kind of optimize the journey of who we want to be. So that's kind of a wide-reaching view of yoga, but that is part of it as well.
And the breath work is so important. How does the breath work impact our bodies and our minds?
There actually are several different types of breath work that yogis practice. There's nostril breathing, where we kind of alternate nostrils. That one actually gives me anxiety to have it, and it's something covering my mouth, but that's a really popular one. There are several different. The one that I teach is called Ujjayi Pranayama. Pranayama is life force or breath in Sanskrit. So when we practice that particular breath, we inhale all the way to the top of the lungs, and then it's inhale and exhale through the nose. But this is one of those things where we can kind of trick the mind into stillness. So if we are concentrating on what the breath is doing, the quality of the breath, how it feels in the body, an audibility quality to it, if it's audible, we can make our breath sound like an ocean wave. So it's this thought where if we can calm everything and quiet everything and just focus on the breath, how it feels, how it sounds, all that, we are better able to kind of shut out the noise around us. So the word yoga, it means to yoke or to join together or to bring union to, and that's bringing union between the mind and the body through the breath. So we can bring that awareness into the breath, and it helps to kind of quiet everything down. Yoga also means to, I'm gonna flub it. It's the cessation of the fluctuations of the mind. So if we can cease all of the chatter going on, because I think a lot of times when we try to sit down in a mindfulness or a meditation, the wheels start spinning, right? We start making lists of what I need at the grocery store, what I need to do this weekend, all the things that are on our to-do list. Those start kicking in when we actively try to quiet them down. So if we can use the breath to kind of this little trick into quieting all of that down, helps us to build that connection between the mind and the body.
So I'm not the only person whose mind just goes everywhere whenever I try and do mindful breathing.
Also, this is why it's a practice, because we can't just sit down and, oh, look at me, I'm meditating. It's a practice that we go through for years and maybe forever. I think that's one of the cool things about a yoga journey, is it could take forever. You could do it until your last day.
And you talk about it being a meditation. I know you can get a good physical workout too.
Yes.
But talk a little bit about meditation and how that comes into play.
Yeah, meditation is also something that I've learned through my practice and my training, that meditation is also a destination, and it's a whole journey to be able to get to an actual like transcendental meditation where you can sit here like this and just quiet everything out. And I did a training one time where we sat down to meditate, and the teacher just said, don't move, don't scratch anything, don't swat at the flies around your head, just try to block it all out, and let's see how long we can do this. So we got to the point where I lost track of time, I know that for sure. But at the end, she said, okay, how long do you guys think we were meditating? People were like, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. It had been 45 minutes that we had all just been sitting there. And that's the one and only time that I've ever been able to reach that place where I just could block everything out. But as far as being able to sit down and meditate, I think our mindfulness journey leads up to that. And so we begin with being mindful, creating the space for yourself to quiet everything down and be able to bring your awareness. And then the next step is to being able to block everything out. So this is where we can ignore the stimuli that are happening around us, other people's breath, talking, traffic, whatever the case might be. And then it's just a slow process into getting to a point where we can meditate. But that whole process is beneficial. So every part of that process, being able to be more self-aware and, working toward, you said, it doesn't necessarily have to be a goal, but sometimes we can practice meditation for our whole life and never actually get to a point where we're technically meditating, in the original yoga sense of meditation. But yeah, it's just being able to withdraw the senses, and being able to get to that space where we can just really quiet everything down.
Is it being mindful of that itch, or is it being it's not even impactful anymore?
Well, we do say in yoga we're allowed to observe. So observe, not react. So if there's a bzz buzzing in your ear, you can observe it and then let it go. So and there's another thing that I teach a lot about non-attachment. So if we are feeling anxious or aggravated that this fly is buzzing around, or when I teach in the summer times out at Alquina, we get some gnats and some wasps and what have you might be flying around us. So just to be aware, and we don't want to get stung, but be aware that it's there, observe it, and try to let it go. That's like the pinnacle of meditation, right? If we can have a wasp buzzing around us that might sting us and just be unbothered by it. But yeah, the mindfulness, the single pointed awareness, the observation is a very important thing. So, and that can happen with feelings too. Like, I'm so mad right now. And we can observe the feeling that we are angry or stressed or anxious, and then being able to practice non-attachment. So letting go of those feelings that don't serve us. And I say that a lot, letting go of the things that don't serve us. So if we're feeling stressed, if we're feeling angry or sad, just being able to observe the feeling, kind of that meet yourself where you are in the moment. So without expectation. So I'm sad, but I should be happy, or I'm mad, but I should be joyful. Because it's, it's okay to feel your feelings. It's okay, but we observe them and then let them go, and then try to bring ourselves through the breath maybe to a better place.
So the shoulda, woulda, couldas don't serve us well.
That's right. That's right.
And yoga can help. Can help alleviate some of those.
Yeah.
So recommendations. So someone who's just starting, someone like myself.
Yeah.
What are some of the recommendations? Where would I go? How would I find a practice?
Well, I recently opened a studio. It's called Zen Yoga with Sarah. It's in the Remedial Building downtown. I offer beginners classes. I offer chair yoga classes. I offer intermediate class. I also have been teaching at the park. There's a free chair yoga class at the park. But yeah, as far as a beginner's practice, just depending on your level of ability, if you like to get up and down off the floor, just a regular beginner yoga class would be a good place to start if you don't like getting up and down off the floor. I think this is a misconception about chair yoga. It is for people who are immobile and just sit there and take our stretches from a seated posture, which isn't necessarily the case. I have had people come to my chair yoga classes and they're surprised how much we stand, but we can also do our standing postures with the support of a chair. So it's not necessarily just seated. So I think that is a great place to start. I have a weightlifter actually who has an injury. He's a big buff guy, but he's been coming to chair yoga class to kind of get his wrist strength, shoulder strength, neck strength back, and not have to worry about injury from using our own body weight a lot of times is where we put stress on our wrists and our ankles sometimes. So just depending on your level of ability and, just where you want to start. Also, a lot of people are very intimidated by coming to a public space, to a class full of other people because they don't want other people watching them. But this is one of the things that I really, really stress. Typically, the people who come and they're beginners, they're either watching me to figure out what they're supposed to be doing, or they're just worried about themselves too. So I think it's really rare for people to just come in and sit in a yoga class and judge everybody else. So yeah, like I said, most of the people in a beginner class will be watching what I'm doing because I demonstrate the class as I go, which I also sometimes I'll walk around the room and just give verbal cues as to what we're doing, but any chair yoga or beginner class I will always demonstrate. But yeah, find yoga at 629 Central Avenue in the Remedial Building, and always just check the Facebook page. Zen Yoga with Sarah is my yoga account, but I also post on my personal page as well. All of the yoga things that we're hosting. We also do sound baths at the studio, and that's a good way. It's called a sound bath meditation. So that would actually be a good way to get introduced to the space and some of the surroundings that we would have in a yoga class and some of the other people who come as well. It's a very warm and welcoming space, and I think that a great place to start with yoga, if you're scared to come to a class in person, you can, YouTube has great resources for beginners yoga. I've had a lot of people say, oh, well, I've been doing yoga at home. I'm working up the nerve to actually come into a class. So if you're on that path, stay the course and eventually find a public class and a space to practice in, because I think that's very important. For me as well, I have a terrible home practice because I get distracted. Like, oh, the refrigerator's right over there. I can just go get a drink or get a snack or get, I have a child at home, so they're very distracting. So coming to a class in a yoga space helps to alleviate those distractions that you might not have. Yeah.
So you talked about a sound bath. Do I need a bathing suit or something special to wear for that?
No, just bathe yourself in vibrations and different frequencies. The sound bowl, actually, the bowls, the ones that we currently use, BB does her sound baths with crystal bowls. So they range from about this big all the way down to smaller ones, and each of those sizes correlates to a different frequency, which correlates to a chakra within the body. So when she's doing the big ones and it has a deeper kind of bass sound, that is like at the base of the body. So when she goes smaller and smaller, it kind of works up and up. And like I said, the frequencies and the vibrations correlate to the different chakras of the body. So what it does is kind of stirs up the energy within the body. If you're familiar, people say, my chakras are blocked, or clear the chakras, or align the chakras. That's kind of part of the yoga realm as well. There's the world of yoga is just so all-encompassing, so many different things, so many different aspects to it, and it's just fascinating because I've been a part of the yoga community for 20 years and I'm still learning new things, and it's amazing. So with the sound bath, as we work up the body with the frequencies, it kind of stirs up the energy within the body and kind of helps to balance them and bring them all more into unison, kind of going back to yoga, joining, yoking together, the mind, the body, the chakras, the energy, all the good things.
And where can we find you at the park?
At the park, we don't have anything on the schedule for May currently, but maybe in June you can check the Parks Department page. It's part of the Living Well, Aging Well program. We've been doing it on Wednesdays at noon, and it's open to everyone 55 and over, and I think they might be flexible on that. I'm not sure how. But we had a great turnout. I think that we had 20-some people at the two that we did last month. So that one is amazing opportunity to practice chair yoga and kind of get an idea of what we do there. And then I also do a free community class at the library every Wednesday at 6 p.m. So that is another opportunity to kind of give it a try and see if you like it. And that class most of my classes are all level. I've kind of made a niche for myself, being able to teach multiple ability levels in the same class by offering different options and modifications. But at that Wednesday class, some people sit in chairs, some people are on their mats, just depending on what you prefer to do. So you can catch that class. That class is free. The park class is free. And then I will start offering, maybe over the summer, free yoga Fridays at the studio. So can keep an eye out for that too. And I would just love to be able to make yoga more accessible to people. I know when I lived in California, yoga classes, I was just in Charlotte, North Carolina last week, and some of the yoga classes were like $37 just to take one yoga class. It can be really, really expensive. And that was the case when I lived in California. I was financially struggling, and I found a handful of studios that offered donation-based yoga, so it was kind of like a pay-what-you-can situation, and I want to make sure that people have opportunities here in this community to have access to yoga. It's not just for people who can afford a gym membership or a yoga studio membership. I think it's important that if you want to try it, you should be able to. So we have several options and availabilities for that here in Connersville.
And if I'm ready to go, what do I need to bring with me? How do I prepare?
I say if you have a mat, bring it. I have plenty of extras, and I don't charge people a mat rental fee, which a lot of studios do. I have mats. I just ask that you bring yourself and a positive attitude. Open heart, open mind.
Okay, so we talked a little bit before about yoga and some of the misconceptions. What are some misconceptions about yoga?
Yeah, it's really hard to tell what people, like if you say the word yoga, what thoughts that elicits, because I think a lot of people just think of meditation, or some people think of like a fast-paced yoga flow, or some people be like, yoga, that's easy, it's just stretching, but it's so many different things that it's hard to really pin it down to one thing, because it is so many different things. But yeah, a misconception is that it's easy, that it's not for men. It's not. But I have several men who come to the studio, and it is for everyone. We have people of color, we have people of all sexes, people of all ages. At the studio, most of the kids are in school during my morning classes, but my pet classes at the park, my classes at the library, I've had people bring their children, and like I said, yoga is for everybody. So yeah, the misconceptions that it's easy, that it's not for everybody, and that it's expensive. So it doesn't have to be any of those things.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Really enlightened us a lot on yoga. Tracy with Whitewater Valley Art Association has some updates and some classes and things that she'd like to share as well.
Okay, so for the Whitewater Valley Arts Association, we're having Introduction to Pen and Ink class with Carol Hathaway on June 15th. And go to our Facebook page and you can see where the cost and things like that and how to get signed up. We also have in July, the 25th and 27th, ice dyeing fabric with Susan Yanos, and she does quilting, and but you can do this for scarves and other things too. And there are more to come. We don't have all the dates all filled yet, so we're still working on a photography class, a sewing class, and a couple things like that. So, and then the art show will be coming up on the second Friday, which is June 14th, and that's when we'll have the Healthy Fayette County will have the art stroll, and the featured artist will be Ruth Ann Wilkins, and she will be just putting on display her costumes that she makes for reenactments. So she has a lot of dresses from the 1800s, 1700s, and on, I'm not sure exactly how many eras she's got, but she's going to have those in our gallery. So we're going to be looking at vintage sewing and things for that art show. And then IPA, which is Imagine Performing Arts, will be having the Hullabaloo auditions for the July show. And then they'll be doing a murder mystery at the Zeta Bag luncheon, a fundraiser to help people dealing with cancer. And they're also doing they're looking to start a community choir. So we're looking for people that would like to sing. They're still looking at dates when they're going to start rehearsals. And then we also have the Imagine Performing Arts Band, and we're always looking for someone that wants to play an instrument. And it doesn't matter how old you are, how long it's been since you started your instrument. We're all ages, and a lot of us haven't picked up our horn in 20 years, so or more. And then we're mixed in with a few that are doing stuff with the orchestra or other community bands. So they're there to help. If you can't remember a fingering or what one note is, they help you with that. So we average about 30. We're looking for percussionists. That's one thing that we do not have. We have one teenager, and I think he might be going to college soon. So.
Oh. Do you have performances coming up? Does the community band have some performances?
We had one for the in June or in May for the celebration of the Ville, but they're going to have some more. I think coming up late September. I think maybe August. I'm not sure, but we're looking at some different dates.
And I know something that has been popular and always seems to come up is the wood carving.
Oh my gosh, yes. The wood carvers, they will be setting out on the second Friday when the weather's permitting for the art strolls. But they meet Monday nights from 6 to 8, and they also meet now on Wednesdays from 2 to 6 at the art gallery.
Wow, I'm so excited that they had to expand their hours.
Awesome. Yes, and they've actually been teaching some classes too, so on Saturdays. So yeah, they can come in and check that out. And then we have quilters from 9 to noon on Tuesdays. And then, so we've had some really interesting classes. We've had some crocheting, knitting, as well as stained glass. That's our most popular class. That one we have to have a waiting list. So if you would like that, just let us know. We'll put you on the waiting list for the next class. We have Introduction to Sewing coming up, how to make a mask with Lynette Eklund. It's foam fabrication. She hasn't given us a date yet because she's pretty busy, but she wants to do that soon. And then we've had, if there's any other interests, let us know. We'll look and find some different teachers.
Okay, very good. I'm so glad too you mentioned the art strolls. So the second Friday of the month, you can find us on Central Avenue between 4th and 6th Street, Healthy Fayette County. We just ask that you stroll for a couple of blocks with us. We'll enter you to win a gift card for a retailer downtown. And also, we tend to have little goodies that we can give away as well. So that's the second Friday of the month. It coincides with the art gallery openings, so you can enjoy the art gallery as well. And before we leave, Sarah, remind us again where we can find you.
The studio is at 629 Central Avenue, Suite A, in the Remedial Building. There's signage out front, and it's Zen Yoga with Sarah, so we can find me there. And also on Facebook at Zen Yoga with Sarah.
Okay.
For the schedule.
Yeah. Thank you both so much for being here.
Well, we also have things going on with the Historic Connorsville too, with the museum. So keep in touch and watch their Facebook page as well.
Okay, and the museum is open on what days?
I think it's Saturday and Sunday. We'll try and get them open on Fridays when we have the stroll, so they can be involved. And then stuff going on with the train, they try and be open when that's going on too.
Okay, well, very good. From Healthy Fayette County, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you again next month.